Yeah, apparently not.
Who's on the Iowa play? Who's on the Iowa play? Playing a good team.
Texas.
Texas.
Somebody picked him as the dark horse out of
Beat Jay Horn.
You remember the Kurt Horn?
Kurt was actually on
One of them is a cosmetics company.
Work at Hy-Vee's or what's the grocery store?
Not sure we were. This was
Send the seat.
smiling at the eye. In the Midwest. I usually look at Friday.
I'll give you the rice.
British chef?
Hey, Will.
Yeah, I just wondered if you had already done that stuff.
They gave me like a.
Yes, yes. Well, today?
No, you remember
Right.
for my class.
Yes. Yeah, I did this.
You know what, you don't always think like what's in it, so. And I think my family is getting sick of.
He talks, kind of talks.
Talk real fast.
Like, oh, that's great.
I didn't know either. I'll bring you an option tomorrow, hopefully. What are you talking about?
I
have no idea what you're talking about.
Just trying to make it where you got.
Yeah, he's like, I did a story on that.
Yeah, I did too, but I actually drew a little bit of track.
Actually, I did a story on,
yeah, it's
Kaiser saying,
like
run the floor and raise, use that money.
That was,
You
know, I was teaching different, what we asked him, we asked him to say, people, trying to say different ways. Yeah, you did a pretty good answer.
Anyways, we're not
I
allowed.
thought you were one of the stuff that made it was good. Not right before the That's what I ran with the leaves.
I've never, you know, I've never heard anybody actually impressed.
You guys can wear this. I can't.
Whether that hurt you or not.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I thought it was good. You
found News 19?
That was my headline.
Like I was saying, my wife, I won't tell you what, there was one guy, I went the first 25 years of my life, I was
Where you started?
Yeah.
Spring break last year didn't tell me.
I get all these new pairs of shoes, I was like, oh, this is cool. Now I have 2 new shoes, which is such a first world problem. I never wear all these.
Yes.
No, we're studying.
It's not a job.
March 30th. Schools are like,
You can come on April 3rd. I don't think anybody. Yeah.
they let me sign in, they say, you can sign in, but you can't go nowhere. I haven't doing
Ready for the busy weekend? I guess we don't really have it.
I'm just joking. It's like
you did this, and you did this, you did this, you got so much money, you got like 2 everybody calendar for the first day, but down to both markets.
That's what's
So
like.
now it's match up. You don't have to go to tomorrow night. You'll have most of the NCAA stuff set up already, but it'll just be down to
Coach Mushamp will have an opening statement, and then we'll take questions. I'll raise your hand with the microphone to you, as we always have.
All righty, great to get started. Glad you turned on the AC this morning. We came in here for signing day. It was a sweating box in here, but it's great to see you guys. Thought the off-season went really well. I want to compliment Jeff Dillman and his staff and the job they did. Really pleased with, our guys' work ethic throughout the entire off-season. We put them through a very strenuous program. Injury-wise, going into spring on offense, Trey Duran and Jared Washington. Trey obviously had knee surgery and will be out for spring. It leaves us with 9 scholarship offensive linemen, which is not unusual. We really usually have some bang-ups on the offensive line, and we'll be able to move some guys around and cross-train some guys in some different spots. Jared Washington's still coming off the broken leg, so he'll be very limited as we go into spring. He will be in some non-contact drills, but we're not sure right now, to be honest with you, how much he'll be able to partake. As far as drill work is concerned, defensively, Dante Sawyer will miss spring with a shoulder surgery that he had, but he's doing well off that. Jordan Diggs had shoulder surgery as well. Shamik Blackshear's, obviously the situation he's coming through will not go through spring, but his rehab's gone extremely well. And Sky Moore's got a neck strain that our medical staff wanted to hold him out of contact to start spring. They're going to reevaluate that in a couple of weeks. I'll probably, he's a really good football player. He's played a lot of good football here, and I like to where he is knowledge-wise of what we're doing defensively. I may hold him for most of spring or contact from that standpoint, but nothing serious in that situation. I think as you see the depth chart, we're going to release one after the press conference here. I know that's the most important thing to you guys. We got 5 quarterbacks repping. There is no timetable, but you can't rep 5 guys. So we've got to whittle it down very quickly on the guys that can make explosive plays for us and take care of the football. And that's the bottom line. Who can direct our offense and move the ball down the field and score? So we got those 5 guys repping. They're all listed as or because we're going to move guys around. We're really going to try and rep a lot of what we call 2-spot drills, where a lot of things are going on and guys are getting turns and reps, and there'll be an offense going versus a defense on one field and an offense going versus a defense with the same script, and we'll be rotating those quarterbacks to get them as many reps as possible. So we got to find one of those guys, 2 of those guys, or 3 of those guys as quickly as possible to move forward with, and I'd love to name a starter after spring, but if we're not ready to do that, we're going to take it through to fall camp. So we'll make those decisions, but those guys understands how critical the reps are for them every time they're out. At running back, David Williams and Rod Talley are listed first and second on the depth chart, but we got a lot of guys who are going to get opportunities. A.J. Turner's done some nice things. We got a lot of guys that we'll get some looks there at the running back position. At the tight end, Hayden Hurst, Kyle Markway, and Casey Crosby have been 3 guys I've been pleased with seeing them in the all-season program moving around. And looking forward to working with those guys. I think that can be a position of strength for us. At receiver, Debo Samuel and Meltrick Belton are really the only 2 guys that have played a lot. Terry Guger, I think, has played a little bit. But you'll see that Brian Edwards is listed as a first-team receiver going into our first practice. I've been very pleased with his off-season. He still is a little slowed as far as overuse is concerned with his knee, but he's really come out of it well. But he's a talented young man and has certainly deserved of the opportunities created for himself. And the offensive line, again, we talked about Trey a little bit earlier, but Mason Zandy at left tackle, Pelage will play both inside and at tackle. Knott, Helms, and Bailey can all play the center position, but Bailey, Knott, and Helms would be inside, and Park and Stanley backing up the 2 guard positions. Blake Camper and Malik Young at right tackle. So again, we'll cross-train those guys at several different spots offensively, but obviously the huge question mark for us is it quarterback and receiver, and having some guys step forward for us there. Defensively, pretty pleased with our experience and our talent level in the front 7. You get a guy like Sky's obviously a good football player, played a lot of good football. T.J. Holloman at linebacker, Lorenz Bryant, Jonathan Wallace, Walton have done some nice things for us in the off-season program. So pleased with that. Marcavius Lewis has had a great offseason. Really pleased with his work ethic and how he's gone about his business. And Kelsey Griffin, Abu Lamon's done some nice things. Ulrich Jones, Taylor Starworth, and Kobe Smith will be a little bit limited, both of them coming off shoulder surgery. They will partake in parts of spring. How much of the contact we'll see as spring goes through it. Darius English and Boosie Whitlow, two guys. You'll see Kier Thomas is listed as a second-team defensive end as a true freshman. A guy that's up to about 255 right now is going to continue to grow based on his body. Need to find some answers in the secondary. Not real confident in the safety position based on what we've seen a year ago, but Jordan Diggs won't go through spring, so we've got to find some guys there. Chris Lamons will be a guy that will rep at safety as well as corner and nickel. As it needs to be able to be versatile enough to do a lot of those things. Rashad Fenton, same light, corner and nickel. Antoine Waddle will train as the nickel. Rico McWilliams will train some different places as well. Feel really good about our kicking situation. Elliott Fry and Sean Kelly, two guys that are experienced, good players, and Drew Williams is a snapper, is a guy that's a force as far as covering kicks and punt situations. So that's kind of about where we are right now with our football team. Again, strengths probably the front seven defensively of guys that have experience, some talented guys. We don't have a lot of depth, so we can't afford any injuries. And then the offensive line and tight end position offensively. But we got a lot of unknowns heading into spring, but I've been pleased with our work ethic and attitude so far, and looking forward to tomorrow and getting on the field. We have not been on the field with our team with the ball yet, so we have a lot of questions that will be answered over the next 15 practices. I'll open it up for any questions.
Brian?
Over the first three practices, since it will be the first time with the team with the ball, are you more interested in kind of going through some of your objectives or more kind of setting the tone of what you want from your football team?
Well, I think we've been really clear about, setting the expectation of what we see every day at practice and what we want out of our football team. So each day we'll have a point of emphasis of installation, offensively and defensively. We're on the same page about what we want to do, what we're going to do on special teams. And our players understand the expectation of what we need to get done.
Back, Derek?
You kind of elaborated on it, but what would you say is the biggest emphasis for your football team in these next couple of weeks?
Well, I think, the biggest thing in the all-season program we emphasized was ETD, effort, toughness, and discipline, and displaying that every single day on a consistent basis. And I think that now, going into spring, physicality has got to be our edge. And I think that in our league, I've been a part of this league a long time, it's a line of scrimmage league. You got a chance if you're good on both sides of the ball up front. That gives you a chance, just a chance. But you got to be able to block them and when you need to run it and tighten the red zone late in the game. You got to be able to gain first downs, and you got to be able to stop the run defensively. And you got to practice that way. A lot of coaches talk about tough, and we're going to be tough, we're going to be physical, but you have to practice that way in order to be able to do it, and that's what we're going to do.
Scott?
How many practices do you anticipate it will take to whittle the quarterbacks down from 5 to 3? And also, you mentioned Ulrich Jones. Has Jones moved back to defense, considering he played tight end and offense last year?
Jones.
Ulrich Jones?
Yeah, he's on defense. We're going to play him inside. We're going to cross-train he and Abu both at tackle and end defensively. But, again, I don't want to put a timetable on anything, and then we come out of the third practice and you're asking me who's going to be the top three guys. I mean, we're going to make those decisions as best we can and giving those guys every opportunity. The thing we've got to be able to do when we come out of practice X, that of those 4 or 5 guys, they've gotten the equal amount of reps. That's we got to be fair to those guys in those situations, but also be fair to our football team and understand that we have to make some of these decisions quick because you can't rep 5 guys. That's the bottom line, and that's what we'll be able to do.
When you're putting together this depth chart, without having seen these guys with the ball, how much of it is based on what you've seen from them on film as football players and what you've seen in your off-season program, in the weight room, et cetera?
Well, a little bit of film, a lot off the off-season program and what kind of work ethic they displayed. First impressions are really, really good or really, really bad, one or the other. And, first impression of a guy's work ethic, of a guy's intensities, of a guy's competitive edge, to just go compete every single day, that says a lot to me. So it doesn't really matter whether it's an all-season program or it's spring practice number one. You either a competitor or you're not. And you can't turn that on and off. That's not something that's easily turned on and off. You either compete or you don't. And that's what some of our guys need to learn, to compete a little bit more.
So this depth chart that you've got in your mind, is it very, very fluid, or do you feel like
Absolutely. It's fluid every single day. I mean, we could change by the time we practice tomorrow, as far as I'm concerned. I mean, just based on a meeting or anything. I mean, and our players understand that. They understand, we've got to create, and I told our staff this morning, a sense of urgency and competitive edge with this group right now. Because right now, we're kind of, sticking our toe in the water instead of jumping in. And we need to jump in.
Will, what would you say about McElwain's work ethic and competitive edge from what you've seen of it?
I think it's been really good. He's done exactly what my expectations were for him, to come in here and work extremely hard, and he's done that. So I've been very pleased.
And as far as the returning quarterbacks, Will, from the point of work ethic and your film study, is it a little better, a little worse than you thought, viewing it from afar?
Well, again, I think it's hard for me to sit there and judge anyone off a situation where I wasn't involved in. But at the end of the day, I've been pleased with those guys' work ethic and their approach to being the quarterback at South Carolina. There's no lack of want to out of any of the five, that they all want to be a part of that conversation. So that's exciting to see. We'll see how they do manage it when the game starts and the bullet starts flying.
Well, how does this spring feel for you? Does it feel any different than maybe some of your springs leading Florida and some others that you've had in the game?
I think that every spring ball, I really enjoy spring ball, because that's true coaching and teaching, and you're not, obviously I love the arena on game day, but you're able to really, see a guy develop from practice 1 to practice 15, and really to see him grow and develop and don't have the pressure of having to get ready for a game and those sort of things right now, which is good for us. So, I think every spring presents its challenges. We certainly have several in front of us here, but we look forward to the opportunities we have set in front of us.
What's your current line of thinking on Sky, with what position he's going to play? And if
He's going to play linebacker, and I feel very comfortable with where he is knowledge-wise. He's a guy that can do a lot of things, and we will certainly use him in the deep part of the field and a lot of different things that we're able to do with him because of athletically what he can do. So, obviously those will be some things that we'll install and look at, and I see him participating in some non-contact stuff for us as spring rolls on. But just right now, that's where we are. Yeah.
Coach, how nice is it to have 5 quarterbacks that you can kind of choose from right now, especially coming away from a Florida program where you dealt with so many injuries at the same position?
Well, if you got 5, it means you don't have 1. So I don't know. You can look at it however you want to look at it. The glass is either half full or half empty, I guess you could say. But no, I think we have some guys that are capable to do a good job, and they'll certainly going to get a lot of opportunities. We're going to get a lot of snaps for them, and I've tried to structure practice in a certain way that they're going to get a bunch of snaps.
The fact that you've got 2 guys listed as outside linebackers and the rest are regular, is that an indication that the 3-4 is something that you won't use much, or is that an indication that you're still figuring out who's going to do what?
No, for us, our Buck and Sam is an outside position. Our Mike and Will are inside positions. Okay. So the way we have it listed is an end, 2 tackles inside, a Buck, which is an outside backer, hybrid defensive end, and a Sam that could be an end of the linebacker or a stack backer.
Okay.
So we're going to try and, at the end of the day, to answer your question, we're going to try and identify what our players do best.
Right.
And we would love to be able to incorporate some odd front in that, being some 3-4. Obviously, as we start spring, we're going to start in 4 down and kind of migrate from there with some 3-4 things that we like to be able to do. But again, it all goes back to what can your players do, and depending on what they can handle, because there are some different techniques involved in when you're playing a true 3-4 situation as opposed to a 1-gap look.
So that outside linebacker spot and your Buck spot is basically the same thing?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
2 guys enough there, or do you feel like you need to have?
I'd like to have more, and we'd like to have a little more juice on the edge. So that's the bottom line. But we got to. That's where we are. We got to continue to move towards that. Mm-hmm.
how did winter workouts go, and how much, especially this year, do winter workouts give you your first impression of the team and vice versa?
Well, I think, winter workouts are, about what I talk to our team about: effort, toughness, and discipline. It takes no skill to go out and play hard and display toughness and discipline within what you do. And that's really what we're trying to get the guys to do on a consistent basis every single day. But you can't fall in love with them either from a standpoint of, it's football is certainly related, competitive edge, everything's related. But at the end of the day, you got to go. You got to put on the pads and play the game of football. There had a guy that y'all know very well now, Marcus Spears, that works for the SEC Network. He wasn't the greatest off-season guy in the world. I'm gonna be honest with you. But when we put on the pads and we turned it on, he played really, really good for a long time. So I think you got to be careful sometimes when you fall in love with a guy that runs real well in shorts, and all of a sudden the bullets start flying. He slows down a little bit. And there's some guys that maybe don't look as good in the all-season program. They're going to be better football players when you put the pads on and you start playing the game. So, but I do think from a competitive edge standpoint and just gutting things out, the all-season program is critical for your success moving forward. But, really we work 2 days of change of direction and really working on a lot of that football position-specific things. And we look 2 days of linear motion and plyometrics. So we're trying to improve stride length and stride frequency in running, but also improve their explosive power as well.
And in the short time that you've been with them, do you get a sense of anxiousness from the guys knowing that they're just ready to move forward?
Well, I think so. I think that they're, again, they've been, Coach Spurrier was in this morning. We were talking about it. They work hard, and they've been very receptive to everything we wanted to do, and compliment him and his staff for the type, young men that we got in the program. No doubt about that, and how hard they've worked. I've been extremely pleased with our work ethic and our buy-in. There's no doubt about it. Mm-hmm.
Is there an expectation to have the whole offense and whole defense installed by the end of the spring? And if not, do you kind of set goals for how much you want in before it finishes up?
I think it's a day-to-day process. I've done this, unfortunately, a lot of times. So, you kind of, it's that old theory, you throw it on the wall and see what sticks. Pick it back up and put it back in the bucket and throw on the wall again and see what sticks. And you try and figure out data. What you can't do is confuse a young man. But you've got to install enough to where you get into fall camp, they have a comfort level of what we're trying to do offensively, defensively, and special teams. Don't want them playing slow, but you need to find out who can learn too. So purposely, there'll be some heavy installation days and see who can handle that. Because when you get in the season, we're not going to introduce anything concept-wise totally new on either side of the ball. But you need to know who can handle a heavy installation on a Tuesday when you're getting ready to play a West Coast offense. And then next Tuesday, you're playing a 5 open receiver set that's totally different. How are they going to be able to adjust week to week? So part of the evaluation process, not just physically, it's mentally, of how they can handle and how well they're going to be able to adjust. And I learned a lot going through spring and see how guys adjust to the installation. So, but let's be smart as coaches and don't give them too much where they're playing slow, because we need to evaluate, what kind of football player these guys are, not how much they can learn, so to speak.
Well, you had to pedal pretty hard on the recruiting trail when you first got here. Since signing day, and you had positive results. Since signing day, have there been some continued positive results and inroads on that?
Absolutely. You're selling a great place. You got a great school, got a great situation, a new $50 million facility being built that's going to be as good as there is in the country. You got Columbia, the capital of the state of South Carolina. I mean, there's an awful lot of things to sell here, and it's our job as coaches and a staff to get the young men on campus and get their families on campus and expose them to our staff, to our vision of where we're headed with things. And there's a lot to sell, so it's been very positive. Extremely pleased.
Coach, Bobby Bentley was one of the first people you kind of announced and brought aboard with you. Can you just address kind of what his ties and knowledge of the state have meant in recruiting and otherwise, and also what else he brings to the table as an assistant?
Well, I think, Bobby's, winning record speaks for itself and what he accomplished at Burns High School and also at Presbyterian. So His offensive numbers speak for themselves. I got a little nervous walking in some of these high schools that he beat 50-something to nothing. I didn't know how much those high school coaches liked him that much, but Bobby's Bobby's a great person. First of all, he's a good man, but he's a really good football coach. He's added a lot to our staff from the ties he has in the state of South Carolina, which are really, really important. And we needed to mend some fences a little bit in our state, and certainly he's provided us to do that. To be able to pick up the phone and call most any coach in the state, he's able to do that. And that's something that, it's very valuable for me as the head coach to be able to get a guy on the phone quickly and have a relationship. Because really, there's so much in our life, whether it's the football profession or it's the business world, is about trust. You trust somebody, you know somebody, you have an in with somebody. That's really important. And so to be able to have Bobby to be that, resource for us, I think is really important. And Sean Elliott and Robbie Lyles and Ellis Johnson and Clyde Wren, all of those guys that have very strong ties to our state have been invaluable for me.
Over the last 5 years or so, how much have your thoughts about player safety evolved, and how do you mesh that with being as physical as you want to be?
Well, we take a very extensive part of our team when we talk in terms of how we tackle, as far as seeing what we hit, bowing the back of our neck, tackling the proper way. As far as we talk in terms of how we block, seeing what we hit, bowing the back. All of those things are really, really important to me as far as the teaching process of football. You never want to lower the crown of your helmet. You never want to be in those situations. You never want to be in a butt-down situation that causes you to lower the crown of your helmet. So those are things that we really talk a lot to our team about as far as teaching the proper techniques of that, and then getting on the field and going through a somewhat of a half-speed tempo of teaching those techniques and understanding that. But you can be very, very physical and never tackle to the ground. We call it a thud tempo. And I heard that, it's a league that had outlawed tackling during the season. We never tackle during the season. You can be very, very physical in what you do and stay up high. You look at the NFL. When I coached in the National Football League, we never went to the ground. We never scrimmage tackle. We just didn't do that. That's not what we did. But we taught our guys, and part of being a good team is being able to practice the right way. And a lot of our teaching, Josh, goes into teaching how to practice the right way. And we have certain tempos of practice, and what I would refer to as thud tempo. No one's on the ground. We don't cut block. We stay up high. To be a really good tackler, to be able to, the worst thing you do is you bend at the waist, which causes you to duck your head, and that's normally when injuries come in charge. So to be able to really good tackle, you got to bring your feet on tackles, take the extra step, get to handshake distance, keep your head up, and what I call a chest-to-chest tackle. That's how you tackle really good. But you got to bring your feet, and in order to be a good thud tackler, that helps you be a really good tackler on game day. Leaving your feet's not good to be a good tackler. That's not what you need to do. Sometimes in some open field situations you can do that. I think that player safety is paramount for us. Our medical staff makes every decision as far as a player practicing or not practicing based on an injury situation, and I adhere to all of what they give me as far as those things are concerned. But that's the first and foremost for us is player safety.
You have a lot of guys at running back also. Do you work that competition the same way as quarterback and try to know down and give equal reps? And what is kind of the focus, or what would be the goal after spring?
Well, you'd like to, in our league, have as many as you could, obviously, but you also got to realize that, just from an ability standpoint, to be a really good back in our league, there's not a bunch out there. So we'll give every one of these guys every opportunity in the world to be the running back at South Carolina, and I'd love to go into fall camp with a deep group because, unfortunately, that is a position where there's going to be some injuries because of the hits and the physicality that they're going to embrace. So, we love that, narrow that down again as much as we could, because when you get in the season, you can't rep a bunch of guys. So I think our guys understand at some of those positions the sense of urgency that they need to play with. At the receiver position, we signed 5 guys. One of them's here. There's 4 that aren't on campus. I told those receivers, you got every opportunity for 15 days to figure it out and to be productive, because if you're not, those guys coming in are going to get every opportunity in the world. So they understand the urgency they better come out there with tomorrow, and not just tomorrow, but for 15 straight days, practices.
Well, I know you had the good fortune as a young guy to be around a lot of good coaches and mentor-type guys. Can you kind of tell me what influence Bill Oliver had on you?
Wow. I think, first of all, brother thought out of the box probably a little bit more than most coaches did at that time. A lot of the things that we did back in 1995, as far as just schematically, you go back to the 1992 national championship game and the up package he used against Miami, which created some confusion for their team, and pressuring out of it and covering out of it. A lot of the concepts, that we used today are things we did back then with him. And really out-of-the-box thinker, that's really, a lot of the basis of our 3-4. I learned a lot from him then. And probably as much as anything, Nick Saban hiring me at LSU was the recommendation from Brother Oliver, to be honest with you. So there's no question his impact on me as a coach was huge.
Any other questions for Coach Muschamp?
That's it. All righty, thank you.